Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I know that we're talking a little bit more about the video game today. I have to say, it's like I'm like really coming to terms with like how close we are for this game to coming out. I don't know why I don't know why I keep getting so juiced up because we already got the game coming back last year, but I can't stop thinking about it, man. I can't stop thinking about it.
Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered tagged it. Maybe he did tag us in something. Maybe he didn't. I don't really remember. And I hope Road to Glory is much easier in processing and developing. It looked like it in the trailer. It looked like it was much easier. But man, I tell you, I love the game being back. But I think we're all excited because there are a lot of things to build. And now you go into year two, you're expecting a better one. And I hope that it's better. You know, somebody equated it on Twitter as being, I hope this is the Dark Knight to Batman Begins.
Well, the analogy that I have off the top of my head of you saying that, it makes me think of, you know, if a great coach takes over a great program, year one's usually not the biggest year. It's usually a nice foundation building year. Year two is when we start to really see the promise. We start to see the big picture. I think a lot of people realize that the first year of the video game was going to be like nice to just get it back. And I hope that this game's amazing. Yeah, it was good for what it was.
I didn't like some of the recruiting stuff,
right.
But that's neither here nor there. It looks like Road to Glory is going to go be stupid because of like the high school, and then you get to pick, and then you could get benched, and then you can. I'm like, here we go. This is the Road to Glory that I remember, but. We will get to that because they dropped their top 10 most talented teams in college football in 2025. We'll talk about that. We'll also do Jim Harbaugh being involved in this class action lawsuit. Joe, I'm going to call for something here that is going to be a little bit of a reach, but I'm going to call for it anyway on this Harbaugh news. And then we'll get into a Washington deep dive, which, by the way, Big Ten. Hold up. We have not done this all season. Now, I will remind people, the last time that we went stupid like this, and I can pull up the video because I went and searched for it today, where we came out and said, Big Ten, watch out. We said Indiana. We said don't sleep on Kurt Cignetti and the boys up in Hoosierville. I don't know what Washington's going to be, but my God, they got some talent, and my God, a lot's coming back too.
What they're bringing to the table this year is one of the most underrated teams in the country, if not the most underrated team, because they're so far in like another realm all the way up in the Northwest that I think that like the general college football fan is just not caught up with what they are as a program. They have athletes. They have unique athletes, 2 6'3+ corners that they're trotting out there, which is insane to talk about. I'm excited for this deep dive. I'm glad that we're getting to it now and we can get this out because I think Washington fans should be excited for a big year two under Jedd Fisch and them winning maybe 9 games. It's certainly plausible.
Very, very plausible, and we'll talk about their schedule where we probably think that they can fit that in there. But here's the question. Fisch, Washington, year two. Does he replicate what he did at Arizona? And by the way, if Billy Napier does not do what everybody thinks he's going to do at Florida this year, Jedd Fisch is known to be on the move here. So we'll see. A lot of little interesting storylines. We thought that could happen this past season. Joe, but before we get started, I wonder if Washington was going to be on your top 10. As EA Sports released its top 10 most talented teams in the video game, I'm going to just read them off in order very quickly. Alabama at 1, Texas at 2, Ohio State at 3, Penn State at 4, Notre Dame at 5, Georgia at 6, Clemson at 7, Texas A&M at 8, Oregon at 9, and LSU at 10. Joe, I'm going to just start off with what everybody's talking about here. This is based off of 5-star and algorithm and blue chip, and there, a lot of just basic core principle on it, and just the way that I'm assuming teams recruit. If you look at the averages around where these teams recruit, these teams are normally exactly where they are if you do the law of averages. But Bama being at number 1 really kind of sent some shockwaves to people. Is the Alabama Crimson Tide the most talented team when we talk about reality, not even the video game, but are they the most talented team in the country?
So Elks pointed this out, as you just said in the chat. Bama being number one is pretty crazy. I think that they have a good team. And there's a lot that I've looked at with this roster that's caught my attention. I think that they have an underrated defensive line. I think that their linebacker room historically has good athletes. I think that their defensive backfield, Damani Jackson, is a player that I'm excited for this upcoming draft class. He's really phenomenal to watch his tape. And I think on offense, there are things to like. There's things to get excited about, but there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty. I think quarterback should be an important thing for a rating here for a team's overall. For them to be the number one team in the game over Texas and over Penn State, who I would think Penn State would have the most well-rounded roster in the game, is crazy to me. You should not. I know we're getting like pissed off at game ratings, but you can't have the best team with a first-time starting quarterback. You just can't. You can't.
Well, then you said Texas should be number one.
Texas is an exception for that, but Alabama, there's a big difference between Arch Manning and Ty Simpson to that point. I'm just saying though, you can't be doing that with Bama at number one. At least Penn State should be at the top.
Well, look, I'm not trying to defend them, but we got to just peel back a curtain on one little thing. The freshman class that they brought in, there is some thought that there's two guys defensively in the secondary, one that they think that they might have Minkah Fitzpatrick again. Now, I don't know what Dijon Lee, maybe he moves to safety, maybe he stays at corner, whatever. Okay, and speaking of a former player that played under Saban and going into his second year, Drake Kirkpatrick Jr. So, listen, I think defensively you're right. Joe, I got to be honest with you. Defensively, they kind of stacked from the freshman class. They're kind of killing it in recruiting right now, and they're continuously doing what they do defensively. I'm not so sure I'm with you on the defensive line, okay, because I thought that there were points in times last year where they were hit and miss. Can they get better like LT Overton? Can he be the guy in year two at Bama to really take that thing over? We'll see on that. But, Joe, I agree with you on one core principle. Look, their offensive line the last time we saw them, Joe, got rocked. The left tackle and Caden Proctor got absolutely abused. Brailsford's back at center. He struggles. He's had struggles. He had struggles last year. Now, you go into the portal and get Cam Dewberry. Maybe he plays left guard, right guard. Let's see where they determine there. But the offensive line, Joe, where they have a little uncertainty with a first-time starter, I don't know if overall they're the best roster in college football. Now, for me individually who covers a single team, Joe, I'll tell you what my entire weekend looked like. You can go to my all-22s. It's been nothing but Clemson preparing for the beginning part of the season. Now, number one, nobody in the country has a better front seven than Texas because I have 7 clips ready to go for this upcoming week, Joe, of that offensive line in Clemson getting demolished by backups at Texas. Everybody's back. I personally believe, I don't know if they're going to win anything, but I think that the University of Texas from top to bottom is by far the most talented roster this upcoming season. It might not mean a national title, though, Joe. It very well may not mean that they're going to win a natty. But I know one thing. There's nobody in the country with the depth and talent that Texas has in their front seven. Nobody. None. Doesn't exist. That alone should make them number one. I am that bullish on them. But as I told you coming into this show when we were talking off camera, I've seen this story at Bama before. Now, can Kalen DeBoer be the one besides Nick Saban to do what needs to be done? Joe, they went 9-3 in his first year. Can he be better? Can they be better as a team in year two? I think that they can be. Again, though, we're determining if they're the best overall team and most talented team in the country. I say not. Like, Joe, Ohio State's at 3. They might be very talented. They're also very inexperienced, and we don't know yet.
Yes.
So there comes a part in these rankings. I understand what they're doing and what's involved in this. It's based off of recruiting and 5-star kid coming in. Well, we don't know. The kid's never played. We're going to give him an 80 overall rating. We don't know. This kid's a 5-star kid. The bottom line is, though, in reality, the University of Texas, for me, is the number one team in the country when it comes to talent.
That is the biggest part with this. And to kind of backtrack on my earlier point, I was getting really hung up on having a first-year starter. Texas is the exception for the fact that they're so deep at every single position. I think that like the really good example of this, Trevor Goosby, who is set to start at left tackle for Texas this upcoming year, played in a spot starter role when Cameron Williams and Kelvin Banks went down with injuries towards the end of the season. And that was some of the best tape out of any of the Texas offensive linemen last year. This was an inexperienced young guy in Trevor Goosby. That shows that these 5-stars are ready to go. They're ready to step in. They're ready to play. They have the most talented roster. And it all starts off, too, with Arch Manning, who is one of the most ready to play redshirt sophomores that we're going to see in our time. And I've said that multiple times. You brought up Clemson. I feel like Clemson should be ahead of Ohio State. I feel like Clemson should be in that top 3. I should have brought them up when I was trying to make my point. It should be Texas, it should be Penn State, it should be Clemson. They should all be an 89 overall team, and they should all 3 be the highest rated teams. I don't think that there's a clear separation point between those 3 teams. I think they each have their checks and balances. But for Clemson, to talk about them specifically, they have potentially 3 to 4 first-round guys just on their defense. Talking about TJ Parker, Peter Woods, Avion Terrell, and then DeMonte Capehart is a very underrated, talented defensive tackle. You also have Sammy Brown, who we've talked about is an explosive athlete who flies all over the field. You've got Cade Klubnik, and you've got a very underrated receiving corps, Bryant Wesco and Antonio Williams. The big question mark is the running back room, and if their offensive line, that's probably one of the more average offensive lines in the game. I think that Clemson should absolutely be in the top 3 just from the overall discussion of who has the most talented roster. Clemson has developed and put together a team of high 4-stars and some 5-stars, and they're getting to this point where they're on the cusp of being first-round picks. That should mean something.
Well, if we're going to stay on Clemson, again, I just said earlier that my entire weekend revolved around watching them. I felt like every week they just got better and better. Like every single week. You know what I felt like what it felt like to me? Remember when Dan Lanning and company got embarrassed by Georgia week 1, his first ever game that he ever played, and then you looked up at the end of the year and they were 10-2, and you were like, damn. Like, and then Bo Nix and company come back and they win, and they keep winning. Well, they can't get over the hump in Washington, but Washington played for a national title that year, and you're like, man, they're on the come up. Here they go. I don't know what Clemson can do. What I do know is, Joe, that wide receiver room is absolutely ridiculous. The offensive line is saved to some extent in reference to all the drag routes and mesh routes that they run and the air raid principles that they run.
Ball
Joe,
gets out quick.
Ball gets out very quick. If you're getting to Cade Klubnik, it means that you're a Superman. Like you've done something really quick, really good, or you force them in the 3rd and longs. Joe, the reason they won't be in the top 3 for me, though, is because of that offensive line and running game. Go back and watch Texas. Go back and watch the key games that they lost a season ago. Joe, they got no push. 0 push. You're down 7, 4th and goal at the 2-yard line, and you're trying to run the ball right into the interior versus Texas, and I'm like, didn't happen. You try to do it against Georgia. Didn't happen. Joe, every single game that you lost when you needed to run the football, you simply could not do it in those crunch moments. Now, Cade Klubnik coming back is a big deal. A lot of these situations are big deals for them. I think they win the ACC, but I don't know if they're the top 3. Like, I don't know if I can go there yet because for me, I look at what I have at Penn State and what I have at Texas. Now, I think from 3 to 10, debate your ass off for me. Go ahead and debate it. But I don't know that. Like, I don't know if they're top 3. Maybe they are. They can prove to be with that front 7. Now, they have also, and Joe, this might be the year of the defense. Like, defense is fully back. Think of Clemson's front 7, though. You have a young and up-and-coming linebacker in Sammy Brown. You have TJ Parker, who had 20 and a half tackles for loss a season ago, had double-digit sacks. You bring in Will Held. And by the way, I think I was a little tough on Peter Woods. Just because he wasn't making the plays does not mean that he wasn't as dominant as maybe some thought he could be. Joe, he killed Texas. I mean, he killed them in the interior. If they can put it all together, Joe, they are a top 3 team. I don't know if it's a little too rich for me right now, but I don't disagree, man. Look, in all of these teams, what do all of them have in common? Joe, their front sevens are disgusting. From a talent perspective, disgusting.
The trenches is definitely should be a big key factor that should be weighed a lot in the game. And I think that the game actually does a pretty good job of that. And I think that maybe that kind of comes into play here where Texas A&M's the 4th best SEC team. That doesn't feel right to me. I think that Texas A&M is good. And we talked about on their preview why we think that this year could be a great year for them and why there's a lot of positives and why their O-line is going to be one of the best in the SEC. And Le'Veon Moss coming back, if he's healthy, it's not going to get weighted into a player's overall. So that, him, if assuming that he's at full strength, he's one of the best running backs of the country. But I don't love the premise, and this isn't me giving you a reason to feel good. I very rarely give LSU props because of you. I think that LSU should be higher rated than Texas A&M. I don't think that Texas A&M should be where they are at 8 and LSU should be at 10. I think that Garrett Nussmeier, for as much as I'm critical of him as a draft prospect, he's still a very good, if not one of the.
When he's on, he's one of the best.
When he's on, he's one of the best college football quarterbacks. Brilliant college football quarterback. He is going to be a top 3 overall quarterback rating in the game, I would assume. They should not be 2 overall less than Texas A&M. I kind of have trouble figuring out where does that 88 come from? What is so great about this team? How many 90-plus overall guys do they have that they ended up being an 88?
Well, because here's what A&M does. A&M does recruit their ass off. I mean, Joe, the 2 defensive linemen that got some of the most pub, interior defensive linemen that got the most pub in the draft from the SEC were from where? Shamar Stewart goes where? Walter Nolan goes where? Joe, they're
not there anymore, though. They're gone.
I get it. But they still have done some of those things.
Okay.
They still brought in top-tier talent. The problem has always been not the talent. Joe, remember Devin A-Chain? Everybody's like, where has he been? And I'm like, hold on. No. Y'all didn't watch A&M at all then. Ever. Because A-Chain went stupid. They have not collectively as a staff yet. Now, maybe Elko can do a little bit something different. They have not shown on the field that collectively they can get it done. Joe, that offensive line and run game might be absolutely insane. Marcel Reed might go off. We'll see. They brought in some talented wide receivers with Concepcion. I don't know. In reference to LSU, I'll tell you this. I've told you this since spring. There's one thing I know about LSU that you better buckle your chin strap for. Their edge rush is going to be absolutely nuclear, and I mean that.
I'll take your word for it.
So, all right. This is Jaden, for me, how dominant they could be. Could be the things that I saw this spring at every single practice. Joe, they had six sacks in the first half of a spring game. Now, you could say, well, Will Campbell, Emory Jones isn't there anymore. That's very fair. Joe, they were replaced by 2 5-stars. And kids that I think that can play and will play. So there comes a part where I don't know if LSU collectively as a whole, though, Joe, if it's not a little bit of prove it. Because the interior defensive line, it's not shown that they can prove it. The interior of that linebacking core, what is Harold Perkins going to be? They brought in a lot of talent in the secondary. Joe, there's going to be probably 3 of the 4 starters in your secondary, maybe 4 of the 5 when you go big secondary packages that are going to be transfers. I know that you're high on Mansour DeLeone. You bring in the number 1 corner in the country in DJ Pickett. You got so many things returning in that secondary. Joe, on paper, yes, LSU could be that. They got a lot to replace. And it's going to be interesting to see how Brian Kelly handles that. Joe, I'm not – did you see me fighting for them at 10? I'm not fighting because I think there comes a point in time where you got to now go out there and show it. The Bayou got called out. The Bayou responded with money. We did our part.
They'll probably be, I think, by like middle of the year once these rosters get updated, they'll probably be the one team that rises the most.
Probably.
I agree with that.
They got to run the football and stop the run better. Look, you can make fun of Brian Kelly all you want to. His Notre Dame's team's philosophy was not built that way.
No, it was all through defensive tackles and running backs that they drafted, or not drafted, that they signed high recruits 100%. That were D linemen, and they haven't done that yet.
They haven't been able to do that yet. By the way, Brian Kelly had another tight end go in the top 40 picks. It's his 11th.
That's nuts.
That is nuts. Hold on, pause. We give the man a lot of shit. His 11th. Good Lord. I mean, I'm sorry. Good Lord. You know what I mean? Like, that's insane. Regardless of that, I'm not fighting the battle for LSU. You got to prove it to me too. I will say I do think for Garrett's sake, he's done some things this offseason that I think that you more than most, Joe, know were my level of concerns. If he's taken into account outside of year one, I think Garrett can reduce those turnovers. And listen, if he reduces those turnovers, you're fine by me, bud. It's the ones where you're throwing a jump ball to a 5'7" guy that, well, I'm not going to – it's not going to work. Yeah, it's a dumb decision. All right. Joe, when we come back, we'll talk about the class action that Harbaugh was listening to and a deep dive you and I are pretty excited to get to with the Washington Huskies. Before we do that, everybody do us a favor. Hit the like and share to all those groups you're on Facebook and to all those social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell, wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. Joe, let's take a quick break. We got news for college football. I feel like we at least once a month have to bring this up. But, Joe, Harbaugh, I almost called him Jim. It's John.
Not Jim. No, it's Jim.
Oh, I mean, I almost called it. Okay.
You had it right. It's Jim Harbaugh.
Jim Harbaugh was filed in a class action suit in the investigation of federal matters as well in reference to the computer scandal with oh my God, I can't even read my Matt Weiss. So we bring into the situation, Joe, that he's filed in it along with the AD's office. I guess your thoughts with this whole situation. And let me just ask a question. At what point should we ask the question that a lack of institutional control should be opened? Like, okay. I mean, we're getting to a place where this is a fine line that we're talking about here with Connor Stallions and with this whole situation.
Okay. So I've been a defender of Harbaugh in Michigan throughout a lot of this stuff. I don't think I can defend them as easily today, but I've got a lot to dig into. This is completely separate for anyone who jumps in and says anything about sign stealing. This has nothing, zero, to do with the sign stealing scandal. He was not accessing computer information from other teams to steal signs. There's nothing to do with it. He was hacking into students, female students of the University of Michigan, student athletes, to get intimate images of them from their phones, from their iCloud accounts. It was a very disgusting, nefarious thing that he was doing. This suit that is occurring, Harbaugh and the administration were added to it because it was believed that they turned a blind eye during the Fiesta Bowl run in which they faced off against TCU. And they waited until after the Fiesta Bowl to fire him. I am not going to jump, Blake, to the lack of institutional control commentary yet. I need to see, and I want to see, what is the result of this civil suit? What is found? I don't want to go and yet to accuse, because there's a couple steps that we have to do to get there to talk about institutional control. If it is found, though, Blake, that he and the administration did turn a blind eye to this, and they're able to clearly prove it, and they don't just settle. If they clearly prove it, then yes, I am on your side. Because then we get to this spot now where we're talking about how he claims he didn't know that Connor Stalions was doing what he did. He was a rogue actor who did it on his own volition. Well, he had no control over him. You had no control over Matt Weiss, who was going around being a disgusting piece of shit, doing the things that he was doing. I am willing to make that and flip off of my original argument that I had in the different instances that we have talked about this once we know the results of the court case. But because we don't, I am in wait and see mode.
All right. Here's where I am. You've given teams that with less. You've investigated teams for lack of institutional control for far less. I think the NCAA is scared to make a move because of every time that they make a move, they keep getting denied. They keep getting clapped. Every time that they try to do something, it's hit with a lawsuit and they have zero power. That's why I think that they're not trying to go after this at a harder rate and level that they should be. Joe, he's on your staff. You have the other Connor Stalions investigation. How many level 1 violations at one school do you need before this become a thing? We can have our disagreements on the sign stealing. You and I have our disagreements on the sign stealing, and that's okay. At the end of the day, that's not that is far less of what is happening here.
Yeah.
Far less. When you add it to this dude allegedly getting intimate photos, graphic things with other student athletes, Joe, what was he doing with them? Like, I would want to know why do we always end the conversation of that he just took them? Joe, nobody's taking them and just keeping them to themselves.
But hold on, though. We're not talking about Weiss, so we're talking about Harbaugh. We're talking about Harbaugh's involvement.
Hold on.
With
okay.
this.
Okay, hold on. I'm getting there.
Okay.
All of that being said, Joe, Harbaugh said that he did not know anything about this until after the playoff run. The investigation opened up when?
I don't know. Was that stated?
Right around the playoff run. Joe, nothing like that they're not doing an investigation that quickly and it be like a couple of days. So there had to have been rumors. Had to have been stuff going. He didn't just one day somebody walked in on him. He was doing it. The next day he was gone. Did not happen. It's not how these things work.
My only thing is, and I'm not trying to defend either side with this.
Wait,
I promise I'm not trying to.
Hold on, very clearly.
Yeah.
That's why I implicate Harbaugh. So just so that
I lean on your side that Harbaugh is probably in the wrong here, and I really don't think that there is a world where he's going to come out of this unscathed. Like I really think that as this specifically piles up, to be named in something like this is a serious concern. And if he does get implicated, they should, as to reiterate what I said, they should get investigated for a lack of institutional control. They absolutely 100% should be. I just think that as we have seen in the past, other coaches be immediately and abruptly be fired, that there probably was some sort of a waiting period before the investigation had completed. That was how I read into it. That is what I'm inferring, that didn't want to fire him and then have to deal with a wrongful termination suit. I mean, that's what happened with Pitino, with Rick Pitino, that they fired him before they completed an investigation and then he filed a wrongful termination suit. And I don't remember the conclusion of that because I'm not very well read up on it, but you get just as much trouble as you get in for it happening if it was alleged and it didn't happen, they have to do their again, I'm not trying to defend Harbaugh by any means. I'm not. I do agree with you, though. I think that once this gets settled, I have no idea how long this court case is going to last, Blake. But if it is proven that Harbaugh and the administration knew and they meandered about, they weren't aggressive, they should be investigated for institutional control. I completely agree with that.
I mean, Joe, even if there's a situation where it's just Weiss that's implicated in all of this, forget Harbaugh for just a minute, because really and truthfully, in this instant, that has nothing to do with it for me. Harbaugh being added to the class action has absolutely nothing to do with it. If he is found guilty of this, if he is actually guilty of this, and everything that was surrounding that program during the playoff run, if you want me to sit here and act as if just because Harbaugh may or may not have known that you can sit still on any of this with the only repercussions being a fine, Joe, this is where I think that you got to be behind the NCAA in this. Michigan fans will come in this chat, they will come in our clip video, and they will defend Michigan without a doubt. And they should. They're fans. That's a school that they love. But I have one question for them. What if he's guilty?
That's what I'm saying. If he is guilty, I think it completely changes the scope of the entire thing. I think it does.
Should change, for what it's worth, what we view about the Stallion situation in this one instance. Brother, that's a lot of shit going on, and I bet there was a lot of shit that did not get caught. What else were you doing?
Oh, well, that is always the case when we've got two serious instances that are in completely different realms of what they were. I look at you've watched the Miami documentaries of when they were at their peaks at the two different times they were, and they named all of the different types of violations that they had throughout those periods of time. Players getting paid, issues with academic eligibility, like all of those things from top down. There absolutely was more than just these two things going on that weren't found. Again, and Elks, you didn't listen to what I said, by the way, with the comment that you just brought up. There's not much more wrong stuff that needs to be had. All I am saying is
you want them to be guilty before they're hit with something.
Yeah, you're not going to hit them with a lack of institutional control without this lawsuit being finished. Okay, that's why I think the NCAA hasn't done anything and has not started an investigation. Because now that you have those two things, wait one second. If you have those two things, the Stallions ordeal and you have this lawsuit finalized, then you can dig further to find out what other things could have been happening.
Okay, hold on. I agree with what you just said. If you hit them with it, meaning you convict them of it, yes, hit them with a lack of institutional control. Joe, there have been schools that have been investigated 8 to 10 plus years on lack of institutional control. You can send a NOI, a notice of allegations, to them and start investigating. They do not need anything else other than the allegations to investigate. They have to send first a notice of allegations before the investigation can even start. So they're already behind the ball on this. They're already, you got to, telling a school that you're going to investigate them versus actually hitting them with it are two different things. What I'm calling for is to hit them with a notice of allegations in reference to lack of institutional control. That's all I'm asking. And you know what? You are not the criminal or civil defense. You can determine your own investigation about a completely different matter other than the court system.
That's fair.
You do not need them. So, Joe, we're going to get to a place, and unfortunately for Michigan, Joe, what if this doesn't get wrapped up from the NCAA or the College Football Commission, whoever's investigating this at the time?
This is going to be NCAA. This isn't College Sports Commission related. Yeah.
Joe, it might be another 5 years before you get an ultimate determination. I've lived this with Will Wade, Ed Orgeron, Les Miles. Lived it. Joe, it was an 8-year process. LSU was winning a national title with women's basketball when this was being settled a decade later. A decade. So LSU had 3 coaches by then. They had 3 new football coaches by then.
Mm.
That's the point that I'm trying to make that sucks for Michigan fans too. Am I going to be in 2030 and this shit be over and this shit just happening? Like what? That's the point of where I'm trying to get at. That's why the notice of allegations this was my whole point with the Stallions thing too. When you got so much shit being collaborated, the Stallions thing should have been in the cherry on top for you to really go after a program for lack of institutional control. Or the sprinkles, whatever. If you don't like cherry, whatever it is, the whipped cream, the chocolate chips, I don't care.
I think that we already talked about this. The recruiting violations thing to me I thought was really stupid.
I agree.
I think
dogs, that's dumb.
Yeah, and we talked about this. Part of the allegation comes from the fact that they FaceTime with kids while they were out working out during a dead period. Like it was so nitpicky. But I think that is the indicator, though, Blake, that the NCAA does have some sort of an intention here. Because if you start with the small thing, the easy thing to prove, the thing at the top to prove, to deliver violations for, that one's not going to hit hard. That hammer's not going to hit hard. All right, then we can move on to the sign stealing. We could dig into the sign stealing. Then we can dig into what's going on with this Weiss situation, because that is a case that is happening outside of the realm of college football.
And listen, if you put those other 2 instances, and listen, we have not brought up recruiting here at all in reference to any of this, because both of us thought it was bullshit. So what? Harbaugh fed kids at a summer camp. I got to be honest. So what? Like, come on. He fed.
Well, it was he bought a kid a burger at one of the diners or something like that. I forget what it was.
Come on,
right.
Come on. I mean, we're all humans in all this. Like, I get they're probably talking about like lavish dinners. That's not what the rule's intended for. But there comes a point in time where, you know what you could have done? You could have said, we're going to hit you with these 2 things, or we might even hit you with one of them. But we've opened the investigation, and you know what we're going to do? We're going to wait until the court decides what's going to happen with Weiss, and we're going to back up and say, whatever their determination is, we're going to agree with it. And then that way, Joe, for what it's worth, the thing that gets me the most is mainly due to the fact of everything that's going on. And I do really wonder what would happen if this happened to another school. Joe, think about I use Tennessee as an example. How long did it take them to open up an investigation on Nico Iamaleava? Boy, they hit Tennessee back to back. I mean, they did
because I think that I think that one was really cut and dry, though. It's like, hey, kid was on a plane that he wasn't supposed to be on. Boom, we're gonna hit him with they had just finished investigating them for something else, so probably easy for them to have their fingers dug in it. Wait, let me ask you this though.
Okay,
you mentioned that you cover LSU, and they're one of the most recent examples of lack of institutional control that we have. That honestly didn't get the same amount of light that I think people realize it's like an allegation like this probably should. What was the main drive? What were the driving incidents?
Les Miles had covered up sexual abuse. Okay. So kind of a same level, but not really.
Different. It was but it was directly him.
Directly him. That Ed Orgeron covered up domestic violence, which that got proven in court to be not true.
Which is part of my point of we can't jump to a conclusion.
Correct. Darius Geis. Remember the whole Darius Geis situation? Yeah. Okay, that was thrown into
basketball program that was,
and then the basketball program got thrown in there. So it's basically, I don't want to say it's the same thing, but think about this: Ed Orgeron was not your head coach. Was not your head coach when that investigation got launched. He was your interim head coach. A notice of allegations came the day, a week later after he was named the head coach. And by the way, you know why LSU went in the portal for a quarterback and got this dude? because they had a reduction of scholarships and a reduction of recruiting time during the summer. It led them to Burrow.
So I'm asking you these questions, though, about that process. Was it multiple layers of them getting different violations before they got hit?
No, what happened to them was civil lawsuits kept popping up because everybody got fired at LSU. And and then remember the Les Miles at Kansas.
Yes.
Les Miles was hired and fired at Kansas before it got settled.
Okay.
And then when Les got put into the investigation of it,
yes,
that's when the next day, if you remember, that he got fired.
Yeah.
So again, Joe, they just got done figuring it out last year.
That is just the final indicator here for this segment of like, they're probably going to get hit with it. And that was what I was trying to say with this, is that it's going to come at some point for the reasons that I brought up at the beginning of the segment of like, if we map all this out, this is a problem. This was proof that there was not control by the administration, that they allowed all these things to happen. And what else were we missing that didn't get reported, that no one noticed? You know, what other crazy shit was going on? It's certainly possible that there was more, but there is a slow legal play out that has to happen before they jump to it. They can't just jump to it and say that we want to hit you with this before anything's been proven.
And listen, I don't disagree. I don't disagree on that point. That's why I said investigate the first two, hit him with the first two, and if in civil court this comes out that he's guilty, then hit him with it.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe, at some point they got to get hit big, but they got to get popped by something. They can't get a slap on the wrist.
No,
they can. I'm sorry. That part's over. All right. Oh boy. Joe, we continue on our deep dives here, and we're going out to Seattle, the heart of college football. There, but no one really thinks that. But
come on,
Joe, here's the real question. Jedd Fisch, year 2, Washington. Is this the sleeper in the Big Ten? Are the Washington Huskies under Jedd Fisch the team that we need to all keep our eyes out on?
I know I already hyped up Nebraska as like my one team that I think is going to be a big riser. I think that Washington deserves to be in that conversation for having that potential. We didn't think anything of Jedd Fisch's team at Arizona in year 2. Nobody thought that they were going to be competitive at all. Noah Fafita wasn't even the starting quarterback at the beginning of the year. And then eventually momentum built, and we saw how well they played. And then eventually he moves on to Washington. I look at this team and I see a lot of key comparisons. I see Jonah Coleman coming with him from Arizona, being a hard-ass running back who is a bowling ball, hard to take down, is now in great shape. I see a defense that has the most unique cornerback pairing in college football. 2 guys that already played together at Arizona in Ephesians Prysock and Tacario Davis.
Great name.
I know, it's a great name. Tacario's potentially going to be a first-rounder, if not a day 2 pick. But the biggest piece with this, Blake, why I am bullish and I'm excited. Go back and watch the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. Who would have thought that statement was going to come out today? And watch DeMond Williams Jr., the quarterback who took over at the end of the season last year. He had an awful pick to start the game. And the game started to get away from him.
The season, by the way.
Yes. It was one of the dumbest throws he could have made. And after that, he put the play behind him. A lot of freshman quarterbacks are going to melt down. And I watched that young man build momentum, make big play after big play, use his legs, evade people, extend plays on the run, and to connect with his receivers. He was immaculate. I think that if not only us hyping up Washington right now, if there is a quarterback that goes on to shock the country and to enter into the top 10 conversation of quarterbacks in college football, I think it could be DeMond Williams Jr. That kid is unbelievable, and I think he fits perfectly with what Jedd Fisch is trying to run.
So listen, I think it is very interesting to look at the University of Washington and ask a lot of questions. Desmond Williams did appear in all 13 games last season. At some point,
DeMond Williams.
I say Desmond.
Yeah.
DeMond Williams, excuse me. I always do that. I always mix my names. DeMond Williams did come in all 13 games a season ago. Joe, you know what the number one thing for me as a freshman, what he did that was so impressive? Over 100 passing attempts, 72.6% completion percentage. Joe, you don't teach kids that level of accuracy that early unless they have it. Bottom line, either you know what you're doing, you're reading defenses. What else are you doing? I mean, Joe, what else are we doing here? This kid did come into a bowl game, and I agree with you. First quarter did not look great. Something clicked. Now, I don't know what they're going to be able to do offensively, but I do feel like that they have one of the more talented quarterbacks that no one wants to talk about in the Big Ten. My question becomes the offensive line that's around him, and if they're able to run the football with Jonah Coleman, who's 1,000-yard back a season ago, double-digit rushing touchdowns, by the way, I think it was was it the Oregon game? I don't remember. The pass pro that he had, and one of them was he decleated a defensive end. And I was like, damn, this dude will put his head down and like knock somebody out. I'm bullish on them offensively because of some of the talent and then some of the receivers that they're bringing back. Denzel Boston was one of them, almost got to double-digit touchdowns a season ago. Amari Evans, like from Penn State. What happens with him? Joe, did you see the depth that they have at that position? Somebody that we're not talking about, a freshman, somebody is coming out of nowhere.
Yep.
So when you bring that many dudes in, there's going to be a freshman that pops through. I don't know who it is yet. Joe, they're sneaky talented offensively. I will tell you, the guys that they brought from the portal, though, offensively, along that offensive line, Carvis Willis, who will play out there at left tackle, and Hatchett that comes over from Oklahoma. Joe, both of them kind of had some seasons where everybody's like, I don't know. Hatchett included, but he was tagged in that whole Oklahoma O-line issue. Maybe they will be able to run the football, but Joe, I got to be honest with you, like you brought up, defensively, they might be a nightmare.
So that's one of the actual – it's an excitement point for me, but it's also a question mark. I had to quickly correct myself. I forgot that Jedd Fisch was at Arizona for 3 years because I forget about the 1-11 year that he had. Year 3 was the big year.
We don't count that.
But, right.
Count that year.
Right. He's not taking over. His first year at Washington wasn't a 1-win team. It was a strong first year going 6-7 and then jumping forward to what we think he can do this year. But defense is either going to be an underrated asset for them or a frustrating question mark because you lost Steve Belichick, you lost Thaddeus Dixon to UNC, you lost Kamari House to UNC. I have faith, though. And I have faith because of the man that is taking over this defense. Ryan Walters didn't work out as a head coach. He didn't. It did not work with Ryan Walters at Purdue. But if anyone remembers back to when he was the Illinois defensive coordinator, he was able to activate and develop a number of guys that went on to becoming NFL defensive backs. In particular, Devin Witherspoon, who was unbelievable and went on to be a first-round pick, top 10 pick for the Seattle Seahawks. I think that with his coaching brilliance, I remember breaking down all the tape of those guys on that Illinois team for 2 straight years. He was doing some exciting, intriguing
in the front
stuff.
7.
Yeah, he was confusing, disrupting, messing with so many opposing quarterbacks. It might even be possible to say this, that they upgraded at defensive coordinator. Ryan Walters is that good of a coach.
I'm going to push back on you on one thing.
Okay.
Baby Belichick did go in there and they were a top 2 secondary.
I know.
So
I know.
I get what you're saying, but put some respect on the Belichick name, will you? Your girlfriend lives out in Boston. You better smart park that thing. Smart park. I need you to smart park that take. I'm not with you there. Smart park that take.
Okay.
But
okay.
I don't necessarily completely disagree with you. Walters is a really good defensive coordinator. The Purdue situation is tough. But Joe, he look at all the kids from Purdue defensively that everybody went after. Defense was not their issue. It was not their issue. You had Thieneman, you had Helt, you had who was the big other defensive end that they had?
Scourton was there.
Well,
in his first
Scourton
year.
was there too, but he really didn't play much. He didn't play.
There was a defensive tackle they had too, but his name is escaping me. But I know who you're talking about.
They had an entire defensive line and a safety. Joe, wasn't Thieneman like top 2 in the portal? I mean, like everybody wanted. Every single school offered him.
Well, he didn't recruit those guys though. That was Brom.
I get it.
They were
but
all
the development part of that, though, the development and getting them there is defense was not their issue in reference to they just could not move the football and their defense can continue to get tired. But you brought up Ephesians at corner, and you brought up Tag Davis. Joe, all right.
6'3" corners, 2 6'3" corners.
This is what I really want to see. If they can go man to man with Walters as their DC, and as much pressure as he's sent at Illinois, and as disruptive as they've been, all right, these kids can play. Joe, when Tag Davis entered the portal, we literally had SEC coaches and a Big Ten scouting and recruiting guy tell the show, "Oh, we're going after him."
Everyone wanted him. He's an NFL corner. He's an NFL corner.
Why that? I don't know why. I don't know why he didn't go into the. Regardless, they got dudes, and I'm going to tell you, I'm a little bullish on them defensively. Go up to Seattle at night. Go up to Seattle midday when that place is rocking. It's not going to be an easy place to come out of. I think that defense is going to be swarming. They're going to do everything well. Joe, if they do that, man, and what we think of Williams at quarterback, I don't know if this isn't a 9-win team. I really don't. I could see them getting there.
So I think that a lot of that comes into play when we look at their schedule and to dig into it. Unless you have any other points. Yeah, do you have any other points that you want to get to?
No, the only other point I would make is I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth. They are bringing in a lot defensively. They're bringing in 8 guys from the portal. When you bring that many guys in, where is the rush going to come from? 3 guys followed from Arizona to Washington. Okay? It's why. There also just comes a point in time where, man, is another Ungulale brother going to go off? Like, I mean, what are we doing here? I don't know. I simply do not know. But to your point, let's look at their schedule.
They start off the season with Colorado State, UC Davis, bye week, at Washington State for the Apple Cup, versus Ohio State, at Maryland, versus Rutgers, at Michigan, versus Illinois, bye week, at Wisconsin, versus Purdue, at UCLA, versus Oregon. These are the games to me, Blake, that I think are the clear losses. I don't think that they're going to beat Ohio State. I don't think that they're going to beat Michigan on the road. I think that you could snipe Illinois potentially, and I don't think that you're going to be good enough to beat Oregon this upcoming year. Illinois is going to, I think, be the turn game because the rest of these, like you get Maryland traveling all the way to you. Rutgers is going to be fine, but you should beat them. You got Wisconsin traveling all the way to come play it. You're going to Wisconsin and Maryland. I messed that up. But still, to this point, though, the roster and looking at it is more talented than a lot of these teams that we just laid out here.
Joe, Ryan Walters is going to make Bryce Underwood's head spin.
But it's at the big house, though. It's at the big house. Like I just don't know if I can.
Freshmen will make freshman mistakes if you let them. Freshmen will make freshman mistakes if you confuse them. I'm telling you. Okay.
I don't disagree with that. That's why I put a question mark there. I put a question mark for the Michigan game.
There's going to be some of those games that they're in there. Listen, they get Oregon and Oklahoma and Ohio State in this schedule. But Oregon's got to go to them, and so does Ohio State. All right.
Well, and I'm not saying this is like Ohio State's definitely going to lose this game, but we all thought Ohio State was going to beat Oregon. Right. Oregon was a lot harder of a setting to play in than people realized. And a lot of Ohio State folks were saying one of the loudest stadiums we've played in. The same thing applies for Washington Stadium. A lot of people are unexpectedly don't realize that is one of the harder stadiums to play in college football, especially if it's freaking raining. I don't think that Ohio State loses that game.
I don't
But
either.
if there was a theoretical, unexpected upset that happened early in the season, that could be one of them.
You got a lot of young quarterbacks in the Big Ten. Williams, you have Sayin, you have Underwood. You do have some experience at Illinois. Okay, I guess at Indiana you could say you have some experience there too. Got a lot of young corners. I mean, you got a lot of young quarterbacks with a lot of experience front sevens and a lot of experienced corners, Joe. Like, listen, Joe, what did the SEC just go through?
Young phase of quarterbacks until a point now where they've got a lot of
they all besides I'm thinking of Carson Beck and your boy from Missouri. Everybody was really and Milroe. First time starters around the entire SEC. Nico, Nuss, Marcel Reed, Connor Weigman, Shapen, I guess you could say, Lagway. I mean, you had a lot of inexperience. That Sellers, what did all of Raiola? What did all of those first-year starters have in common? Boy, they made some boneheaded decisions. I'm telling you now, do not sleep on them defensively. That secondary was good last year. They might be better this year.
They got better, and I think that the path from them, they're high floor for me. I think that they're an 8-4 team with the schedule, and the ceiling is potential for them to go 9-3 and to be banging on the door of the playoff. It comes down to DeMond Williams. Is DeMond Williams going to be great athlete and exciting and fun and like a fun name to talk about? Or can he play to that potential in those glimpses you see of him being a top 15 quarterback in the country? If he becomes a top 15 quarterback in the country with this schedule, 9-3 is totally swingable for them. It is so doable. And
look, he's got more experience than any of those young quarterbacks, literally.
Yeah, he played. He got in sub packages
all 13 games, right?
Yeah.
This is going to be a wider range. If you convince me right now, if you told me, Blake, Joe went into the portal and went into time and saw that Washington was 8-4, Joe, I wouldn't blink an eye. I also can see 10-2. If you come from that same portal and say, hey, they just did knock off Ohio State and they did knock off Oregon, I'm like, makes sense. Because, Joe, what is Purdue going to be, okay, under a new coaching staff? Can Wisconsin win a big game, even though that one's in Madison? Illinois is the tricky one for me, right? Really and truthfully, the Illinois game was the trickier one because Illinois is just a tough team. I can see them beating Michigan. I can see them clearly beating Maryland, Washington State, UC Davis, and Colorado State. I'm buckled up for the ride, though. You're not going to surprise me with this team, especially on defense. Good. Joe, the opposite of this and what can go right for being 8-4, you got 8 dudes in the portal on defense. And sometimes that shit just does not work for whatever reason. You didn't have guys that came up together. They don't know mannerisms. They don't know what the guy next to them is going to do. Locker room issues. I don't know. Joe, they can upset some teams. And I think that they are. I think that they have enough level of talent to be dangerous.
Yes. That's like the formula when I look for like plucky, unexpected team. I look for athletic defense, smart coach, great defense. Like all those things are important, but athletic defense and for what their secondary looks like and a mobile quarterback. And he's not a big kid. DeMond Williams not a big kid, but he's small and he is fast and he's shifty, and he's got an underrated arm for his size. Kind of got a little Kyler Murray in him with the way that he plays and the size that he brings to the position.
I agree.
And he uses it as an asset. If you're going to be the plucky, unexpected upset team, you need to have that. And that's like that. Again, that's that formula of he rips off a late run on a late drive to help them kick a field goal. It's a 20-yard gain up the middle because they're playing the sideline too tightly and there's nobody over the middle. There's no linebacker in a spy. And he just runs up the middle for 15, 20 yards and they kick a field goal and win a game. That's what it takes.
It is what it takes. And you know what's so crazy too? The stats for me when you first saw Williams play does not embody what his play was on film. Meaning a guy running around as much as he was, I never would have thought when I was like, when it's all said and done, Joe, out of 100 plus passes, he completed 72%. I mean, that's where you're like, oh shit. I mean, it's not like Joe that he's 45 of 50 because he came in garbage time and threw the ball around against garbage teams. This dude was in all 13 games and coming in certain situations and making plays. That, for me, is why you could be very high on him. Joe, I don't know, man. I'm excited about – listen, win, lose, or draw, I am excited about the Washington Huskies because I think that they could be a little dangerous.
Hell yeah. No, I'm in on them, and I think that more college football fans need to pay attention to them. They are not getting enough buzz.
At all. All right. Joe, we're out of here. You got another show, I believe.
I don't have another show. I'm going to dinner with my – yeah. That was why we went early. My parents want me to come home for dinner. That was literally the reason why.
You're getting your inheritance tonight, bud. Congratulations.
No.
You're getting it early. All right, we'll see y'all tomorrow. Have a good night. Peace.